parents, I would say they were people of real integrity. I mean, we used to have lots of discussions around the dining room table about stuff. I remember them being deeply, deeply unhappy about war in general and around specific things like why did the United States drop a bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? You know, they felt that that was a horrific act and that there were alternatives to that. We talked about, civil rights and about fairness and women's rights and all kinds of stuff. And if I had to pick one thing, I suppose that would be it. They, I was always passionate about everything. I love to always be on the edge of everything. I don't know. I've never really thought about it before. I suppose I love to learn. I just love to learn. I didn't care if it was relevant or not. Anything that was new in my head. I love to learn Latin, for Pete's sake. I just loved science. I loved everything. I wasn't a particularly good student, but I loved to learn. And I went to Liberal Arts University, and that was a great way to equip myself for lifelong learning. And I did stuff like read about Thomas Kuhn, Structure of Scientific Revolutions. And he introduced the notion of a paradigm that ended up being central to my first bestseller, which was Paradigm Shift, some 20 years later. I read Irving Goffman's 1959 book, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. And I just wrote about that yesterday and how the internet changes the presentation of self. I suppose a deep sense of injustice on the one hand that exists in the world, counterposed by the extraordinary possibilities in the world to do things differently. I mean, that's always been a theme, and with MacroWikinomics, I've really come back to that one big time. I think I was also a product of a generation. I mean, I went to university in the late 60s, and it was a time of unlimited possibilities. And my first 7 years after I graduated, undergraduate, I didn't work. I was just involved in various effort, in a traditional sense I did. I mean, I was working 80, 90 hours a week, but it wasn't a traditional career. I was trying to bring about social change, and then I got lucky, Luck is the intersection of preparation with opportunity. And I was prepared to do some stuff that was not only big idea stuff, but that was consequential. I was lucky I got a job at Bell Northern Research in 1978 to figure out how the internet would change the world. That was like 35 years ago. And we developed this crazy idea that computers were a communications tool. They weren't mainly for processing information. And I wrote a book in 1981 that argued that, and it didn't sell very well. The big reason that people said no one will ever do this, Don, managers, professionals, regular people will never use computers. And the big reason was that managers would never learn to type. That's what people told me. So I became a typing evangelist for a decade. Typing is fun. You can type. Then I finally wrote Paradigm Shift in 91, 92, and that was a big book, as you know. Right. So I've always been interested in technology and innovation, and I was at the right place at the right time. Well, there's practical stuff. I mean, personal use is a precondition for any kind of comprehension. So if you're not using all this stuff, will have no idea what it is and how it could change a business or a government or any other institution. So that's what I tell people. We're at a turning point in human history, literally, where many of our institutions that have served us well for centuries are now at various stages of being in atrophy or failing. And we need to rebuild them around the internet, a new communications medium, and also around a new set of principles. So that has a whole number of quite far-reaching implications for anybody. I mean, business can't succeed in a world that's failing. I'm about to give a commencement address to one of the business schools in Europe, actually, and I'm going to tell them that. I mean, by all means, go and work hard and be prosperous and try and have a good life, but we need more from you than that. You know, the world is broken and we need you to provide leadership for transformational change in the world, not just within your institution. So, also I think you mentioned values right at the beginning, and that's a good one for me, because I think that this is a time when integrity is so important. Because of transparency, companies, governments, other institutions are becoming naked. So if you're going to be naked, you better be buff. You know, meaning you need to have good values as part of your DNA. And if you don't, you'll be unable to build trust. The biggest pushback I get is people say, no, we don't have to reinvent anything. This is just about productivity. It's about tweaking things. You know, it's about cost control. It's about better management. It's very myopic because we need to change the deep structure and architecture of every institution. I mean, Wall Street would be a good example. I get a lot of pushback. People want to get back to normal, but it's not going to happen. And the core modus operandi of Wall Street almost brought down global capitalism, and it hasn't changed that much. So we need to rebuild Wall Street around these principles of collaboration and openness and of integrity and interdependence. And that's a tough message for leaders of old paradigms because they have great difficulty embracing the new. But I don't think it's optional anymore. I mean, you know, we've got burning platforms everywhere. Tinkering is not going to be adequate anymore. It's necessary, but it's insufficient. And that's my main message to people these days. Get involved, participate in this huge transformation.